Alright guys, so today we're going to be talking about the best budget iPhones to buy here. So I have some of my favorites here on the table. We're going to be talking about the price. I get a lot of questions about that, and also gaming performance, battery health, what you should know about that, and just going over, quickly, just doing a quick run through. If you guys want to see the videos more in depth, just type in Matthew's Tech, and whichever phone you want to see, I actually have a full video on going more in depth on that individual phone. So I get this question a lot, which is my favorite iPhone. The iPhone 11 is a pretty solid deal. The only thing about this is that the price on here is a little bit expensive for a budget iPhone, at least to me. It depends on your perspective. But this is like typically around close to 400 bucks. You can find them for, I believe, like cheap 350. This is a phone that I would definitely pick up if I was in the market for a used refurbished phone. It has just aged extremely well. I think design wise it still looks very, very good, and it just feels really solid in the hand. One of the best things about the iPhone 11 that it kind of has over these phones is it has a more modern camera setup. And what I mean by that is these phones with the dual camera setup, those have telephoto lens. This one has the ultra wide lens, which I think is more useful these days, but again, it varies on the person. But yeah, that ultra wide lens on here, very nice, and this also takes some of the best photos as well too out of all the phones here. So the iPhone 11 is definitely a phone that I would consider first if you have the money. So if you have money close to around 350 to 400 bucks, definitely pick up the iPhone 11. It's such a great buy. Also, another highlight with this phone is the Apple A13 chip. Check out these Geekbench scores. Really fast phone here as far as gaming. The display on here is still pretty good. It's a decent display, but we're actually going to talk about you can actually get a better display. So if you watch a lot of content, I would not buy this phone actually. I'm going to tell you which phone you should buy so you can get just a better screen experience. But in general, the screen on here is fine. Don't have any issues with it. But this is a very good phone. It's typically the phone that I would recommend to anyone who has money in that price range. So the phone that I would recommend if you watch a lot of content would be the iPhone XS. This is such an awesome phone. It has the OLED display, and I actually like that it's slightly smaller than the iPhone 11 at 5.8 inches. This has a 6.1 inch display, but it's OLED, it's 1080p resolution, and it just looks really good color wise. It's got the HDR on here, and it's just a really nice looking display here. So if you watch a lot of content, definitely check this phone out. Not only does it have a good display, but it is also cheaper than the iPhone 11. You can find this for around 300 bucks. So it's super cheap as well too. Not only is it cheap, but it also has pretty good performance on here as well too. I'll go ahead and show you the Geekbench scores. You can see with the Apple A12 chip. Now for gaming, you want to go for, if you can't buy an iPhone 11, the iPhone XR and XS is going to be the devices that I would pick up personally for gaming, because these actually both have the same chipset in them. They both have the Apple A12 chip, and they're going to do a fantastic job with gaming. You can play PUBG at the highest settings, and yeah, it's going to be really good for that. So I wouldn't worry about like spending money trying to get a more expensive iPhone, because these older phones still do a fantastic job with gaming. Also, if you want a phone on the smaller side for gaming, the iPhone SE 2020, and I highly recommend this phone even more these days because it's 250 bucks for anybody that wants a small phone with a home button, because this phone has the Apple A13 chip on here as well. So this is also another blazing fast phone. I mean, it is super fast as well too. And like I said, for people who want a home button, you would typically go for an iPhone SE or an iPhone 8 Plus, which is actually kind of still a little bit on the more expensive side. This is like the last big iPhone. I did a more in-depth video on it. This is the last big iPhone that I would buy with a home button. So I really do like this phone as well too. It's an overall solid buy. But if you're looking for an iPhone with a home button, you typically want to go for an SE 2020, and then, or if you want something bigger, iPhone 8 Plus. Now, what about the iPhone 8. Here's my issue with the iPhone 8. It's in a really awkward spot because you can get an iPhone SE 2020 for the same price almost. So the iPhone 8 it's like it's in that weird spot right now. And I would say if you could get this for $100, maybe $150, I would definitely go for that. But for some reason, I see these going for $200, and it makes no sense. So if you want an iPhone 8, I think it's still a solid phone. It definitely is still fairly powerful. But like I said, if you save up that extra $50, $100, you really want to get an iPhone SE 2020 because it'll last way longer. It'll get software way longer. Not only the chip is better, it plays games faster as well too. I think you will overall be happier with the SE 2020. So definitely keep that in mind if you're thinking about like an iPhone 8. Now the iPhone 7 is actually a phone that I really like, and it's extremely dirt cheap these days. It is literally like $100. I would highly recommend this for anybody who has like an Android phone and you want to experience iOS and stuff like that, but you don't want to spend like any money. You can find these for not only $100, but cheaper than $100. If you go on eBay, these are really, really inexpensive phones. So if you want to experience iMessage, FaceTime and stuff like that, and you just want to see what iOS is all about, this is a cheap way to do it without really spending any money. I highly recommend this phone, and overall it's still actually a decent phone. These smaller iPhones though, 7, 8, SE, these phones typically don't have the best battery life. So if you're looking for a phone with really good battery life, you typically want to go for an iPhone 11, a 10R, or a 10S, or even the 8 Plus. The smaller phones will get you around like 4 hours and 30 minutes of screen on time. These bigger phones can go for about 6 hours. All right, so also for battery life, I want to show you guys. So when you go into settings, go to battery health. You typically don't want to buy a phone. So if you're on eBay or wherever you're going to buy the phone, check the battery health, especially if you're on eBay, because you can ask the seller. He needs to show you the battery health. It needs to be above 80%. You typically want to go for like 84 and up. But definitely you don't want to buy anything below 80% because the battery is going to die. It's just not a good battery anymore. But yeah, I have phones that are, let's see, I've gotten phones that are well below 87. I think this is one of them now. One of these is kind of well below and it still gets pretty good battery life. Yeah, this is 85. And this does a pretty good job with screen on time. I'm able to almost get 6 hours of screen on time. So that's just a tip for you guys. Definitely go ahead and check that to make sure you have somewhat a decent battery life. Now, I do want to talk about the iPhone 10 a little bit here. This is also another phone that is a very good phone, but also in kind of an awkward spot price-wise because it's a little too close to the iPhone 10s these days in the used refurbished marketplace. So typically, if you get an iPhone 10, you want to pay, I would say, roughly around $220, $230 for this phone. You don't want to pay anywhere near close to what you would get for a 10s, if that makes sense. So you don't want to like pay a close price for an older phone, right? You would just get the 10s. So definitely keep that in mind here. And actually, let's go ahead and look that price up for you guys, so you guys can see. So here's a 10s, it's $255. So you guys see what I'm talking about, how the prices are jacked up. And this is $225, the cheapest. So you guys can see, you know, just add a little bit more money and then you got the iPhone 10s. So that's why I always warn people, because they'll buy it and then they'll be like, wait, I could have got this for, you know, $30, $25 more. I could have got the newer one. Now, there are some things we need to know about software updates, and my only concern is the iPhone 7. So it looks like the iPhone 7 is scheduled to get iOS 16, but it looks like that'll be the last, you know, update for this phone, iOS 16, which is fine. This phone is a very kind of older phone, and it getting iOS 16 is kind of amazing in itself. But it looks like everything else is scheduled to get more updates. The 8 Plus should get a couple more years. The 8 will get a couple more years, of course, and the rest of them are pretty good. But just do note that. So that is pretty much it, guys. So like I said, My favorite iPhones is really the 10s. This would be like one of my favorite picks. And then the iPhone 11, if you have the money, is a little bit on the expensive side, but I think the cameras, battery life is great. But the 10s has the better display, in my opinion. The 10R I think is super popular as well too. It's very similar in body style to the iPhone 11 as well. Only thing about this phone is it lacks the dual camera setup, but it still takes great photos. Screen is pretty decent, even though it's not, you know, an OLED. It's still it's a pretty nice phone, and it's very powerful as well too for gaming. If you want a smaller iPhone with a home button, you definitely, I would say, skip the iPhone 2022 as well too. Skip that phone. If you don't need 5G, why pay $430 for that newer SE? This one is just as fast and basically the same phone, and it's way cheaper at like 250 bucks. Like I said, the iPhone 8, you want to pick it up for a cheap price. You don't want to pay too much for this phone. Like I would say like 150 bucks. iPhone 7 at excellent 400 bucks. iPhone 10, like I said, it's in that awkward spot. You know, I everything is solid on here, but like I said, it's too close to the 10s. So just get a 10s if you can't find this dramatically cheaper. And then the 8 Plus, like I said, is just a great buy because it has no competition. It's pretty much the last big iPhone with the home button. Still powerful, still great cameras, great display. It's just overall a great buy. Highly recommend it. So check out those full videos. Be sure to let me know if you guys have any questions down below. I'll catch you guys in the next one.